アムロ、地球上に残った人類などは地上ののみだということがなぜわからんのだ。バカなことはやめろ。
やってみなければわからん。
正気か。
貴様ほど急ぎすぎもしなければ人類に絶望もしちゃいない。
Lately, we live in a world where superheroes and shonen heroes are everywhere. From the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the behemoth that Demon Slayer became, those characters are everywhere in the world. But at the same time, the world is getting weirder and creepier by the day. It almost seems that all of the grown-ups, the responsible men who rule the nations, got bored and decided to go the opposite way towards craziness. And also, the pandemic is not helping. We can finally see the light at the end of this horrible tunnel, but the legacy of the pandemic will be felt for a very long time. And you know what's the worst part? That no superhero or shonen hero can help us right now. We are on our own. And I mean, yeah, sure, they can entertain us and get us all hyped up for the next chapter. But in the meantime, we will be left on our own to clean this mess, to find meaning and continue on with our lives and get our stuff together. That sounds somber, right? But that's what they want us to think. And we know better. We know that in fiction lies power, and we can harness that power to be better. We are constantly showered by the actions of heroes from many forms of media, from the movies to comics, going all the way to anime and manga, especially those from anime and manga. So brothers and sisters, I'm Absa, and fiction, be it comics or anime, has always been a part of my life. You can even say that those teachings in fiction made me who I am right now. I studied electronics, but fiction arrived first and blew my mind before calculus and physics came. So come with me and let's explore a little bit more about the power of fiction and how it can lead us to live better lives, not in an escapist kind of way, but in a more inspired and courageous way. And considering the weird state of the world that we are living right now, the stories of heroes and superheroes seem way more credible than some events that are happening in some parts of the Earth sphere. So why am I talking about this? Why try to tackle something as hard as real life instead of anime and comics? Well, I had a couple of rough patches starting 2021 and the pandemic was starting to get a toll on my state of mind and even in my body. It didn't help either that we can probably say that in this era we are surrounded by corrupt public figures or idols or super loved people who turn out to be a fraud or who are full of lies and betrayals. And while I do not justify absolutely anything of all of the tragedies towards the most marginalized communities or groups of people, I understand that humans are very volatile beings and that we can be very easily persuaded to do very extreme things. Violence is an act that aims to solve things in the quickest way, but it rarely works without stronger repercussions. We have seen that many times, even in fiction. Remember the colony drops? And what good came of that? Not to mention the lies that begin as an omission of some important detail of the truth that later become something completely different from what actually happened. But we are human. We are fallible beings with limited memory and with emotions that sometimes exceed the rational. I said it before in my exploration of the team dynamics in Haikyuu. You need the right people around you and the right environment to truly reach your full potential. But what happens when you can't see other people or can't hang out with your friends? Well, we can seek a new kind of company and turn towards our potential mentors and teachers. And I'm not talking about our math or English teachers. I'm talking about the characters in our beloved stories, the divine beings and deities that are above humans, beings so enlightened that can totally be honest and virtuous and perfect. And in this age, there are no better supreme beings that transcend religions like the heroes and superheroes of the pages of pop culture fiction. They are written to be the best of humanity, either in its most benevolent version or in its most twisted and disgusting version. They can also help us to reach our full potential. And even though we have advanced a lot in the acceptance of these characters, sometimes heroes can be frowned upon because they are not real. And that may be true. We won't be seeing anytime soon a Kryptonian flying through our heads or developing psychic powers a la new type. But the ideas that they carry with them are very real. We just need to look in the right places and have the right mindset to explore and understand those ideas in our favor. Throughout the pandemic, I decided to rewatch or reread the things that I liked. One of my favorite comics is Miracle Man, or Marvel Man if we want to get very technical. Miracle Man is a fascinating tale of a man relearning that with a single word he can become this magnificent superhuman that transcends our physical and mental limitations. He essentially becomes a god. The story of Miracle Man started in the 50s as a British clone of Captain Marvel, now called Shazam, but in the 80s Alan Moore reinvented this character. Miracle Man became the first superhero to be subject to the extreme revisionism or deconstruction that Moore brought to his stories all throughout the 80s. If you're into comics right now, but you're bored of the typical Marvel and DC heroes, you should definitely give it a read. I love the story, it's super weird and violent and the foundation of all of the grim and gritty comics that polluted the 80s and 90s. We can even say that Miracle Man is one of the precursors of all of those stories where Superman goes completely wrong. And by right now, you may be asking, what does this character have to do with any of the things that I said before? And that leads us to a certain part of the comic that I want to talk about. It's kind of a spoiler, but it's a very old story, so I don't know if it can still be considered a spoiler after that many years. Anyway, all throughout the story we get to see that Mike Moran knows that Miracle Man, his perfected counterpart, is much more brilliant and durable than him. So in one of the last arcs of Moore's tale, Mike Moran climbs a mountain and gathers a couple of stones where he places all of his clothes and a handwritten letter. He then proceeds to sadly whisper for one last time Kimura, his magic word. Miracle Man then reads the letter. Michael Joseph Moran, 1942-1983. Rest in peace. The curious suicide was understandable. He tired of marvels, of their cost in human warmth. His wish was for oblivion. Those are the last words of Miracle Man towards Mike, his imperfect counterpart. And the first time that I read it, I was like, yeah, okay, so poor little Mike, he couldn't manage greatness, so he took the easy way out. But this time that I read it, I found it to have a very different meaning, much more profound to me. You see, Miracle Man got rid of his human side. He forgot about the human in superhuman, and with that, he was able to transcend into this benevolent dictator that brought utopia at the cost of freedom. Miracle Man can be interpreted as a cautionary tale of the cost of getting rid of your humanity, of the warmth, the relations, the highs and lows, and the simple joy of living as a human. Something more or less like this is happening with our superhero stories, just in a different matter of perspective. With a few exceptions, the MCU and the DCEU and even other universes are slowly favoring spectacle and big fights over character development. They are focusing on the super part and not in the hero part. Even shows like The Voice are only displaying the super part and not caring that much of the human side. Even though the protagonists are only human, they behave very brutal and not caring. And don't get me wrong, I like the show The Voice. It's a great refresher of the superhero genre that has slowly become stale. The thing is that I think that it kind of misses the point. It's never about glorifying the super at the cost of the hero. All Might from Hero Academia has it right. First comes the hero, then the superhero. Superman has a great dialogue in the pages of Morrison's and Porter's JLA. In that comic, Kal-El explains why the superhero concept is not a power fantasy but an idea that can lead us to be better persons. After the attack of the Hyper Clan, who were actually evil white Martians, Superman is talking to Wonder Woman. He tells her that the Hyper Clan was planning to fix the world, but even he knows that things don't work that way. Diana then asks that where does that leave them? Is the Justice League doing too much or too little? When does intervention become domination? Superman then proceeds to tell her that he believes that humankind has to be allowed to climb to its own destiny, that they can carry them there. Flash then adds that, in line with Diana, why should humans need heroes at all? And Superman answers brilliantly, to catch us if we fall. That dialogue is amazing. It defines and delivers the very reason on why I think superheroes exist and must not forget the human element. It's never about the super, it's always about the hero, the inner hero in all of us. Fictional heroes are here to lift us up, to help us find meaning, to inspire us to be better. And you know what? Shounen Stories and even a couple of seinen get the point a little better than most modern superhero tales. There are many shonen stories that are a total success here in the West, be it the tremendously popular Dragon Ball or the super inventive One Piece or even the most recent phenomena of Demon Slayer. Shonens are here to stay. And even though some characters seem too cartoony for their own sake, the messages that they relay are very interesting. It's no secret that I liked Haikyuu a lot. I also found very inspiring the story of All Might and all of the legacy that's implied in the quirk One for All. I think that shonen heroes are less jaded than those of the West. It almost seems that they have not lost hope, that they will keep on striving to their last breath. And while that may seem boring, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that the writers have a very clear target demographic, so they won't go ahead and try to complicate their story just for the sake of being edgy and more adult. Kinda. And I think that it's okay for those stories to be simpler, because that makes the message easier to understand or interpret. The saying goes that if you can explain something in very simple terms, then you truly have mastered it. Almost all of shonen stories are hopeful and the heroes can save the day, sometimes because they persevere to the end, other times with the help of their friends, and even other times with the help of their enemies who understood that they were doing the wrong things. I think that character development is at its fullest in shonen stories because they are stories that end, unlike comic characters that will continue to live on as corporate properties with infinite reboots and retcons. Demon Slayer has one of the greatest protagonists with Tanjiro. He is not superpowered, kinda. He's just a boy that will do anything for her sister and is willing to put in all the work that it's needed to complete that quest. And that inspires his friends to also do their best. Even stories such as Gundam, where one would expect that the main story elements are the mobile suits, in reality, where the show shines the greatest is in the characters, in their dialogues and their personal development. I can really go on and on about shonen stories and heroes and why they have not forgotten about the human part of the hero and how they will keep inspiring us to their last breath. But I want to add a little disclaimer. I know that sometimes comic and manga writers are not exempt from scandals. There have been many instances where they are accused of very brutal and disgusting stuff. And I know that sometimes it's hard to separate the author and their work. But I believe that fictional characters work differently. They live their lives honestly and with the highest virtues. It is them that we should consider as role models, not the fallible, emotional, and irrational humans who created them. The great Neil Gaiman has a very interesting quote about this fictional realm where the tales of heroes and monsters take place. Stories may well be lies, but they are good lies that say true things. Things need not have happened to be true. Tales and dreams are the shadow truths that will endure when mere facts are dust and ashes and forgot. In this era of hate crimes against various groups and public figures who spread fear of modernity and globalization, it is time for us, followers of Shounen Stories, comic book, superheroes, and even heroes of all pop culture, to tell the world that all is not lost, that there are still incorruptible beings within the realm of fiction that just when the world needs it the most, they are here for us, to tell us how to act better, how to do good, how to help others. We just need to read in between the lines to understand the message. Let's stop feeling less because we are fans of a fictional character, because we trust the words of fiction more than the words of the news. There are a plethora of lessons that we can learn in a much more interesting way as we enter the world of fiction. There are values and ideas that can only be embodied in the form of a story. I am perfectly aware that any story with a real person with real powers probably would turn into a horror show in a real life. But the purpose of fiction was never to show what people with powers would do. We already have megalomaniacs to tell us what will happen. The point is to show something to aspire to, because most of us want to work towards something better, something meaningful. And boy, do right now everything seems meaningless. We pick up the stories of heroes and superheroes not expecting for them to be perfect and solve everything for us. We see and read stories of interesting and different routes people found as an alternate way to do better, to find meaning where it lacked. I know that right now many people are having a hard time, be it because of the pandemic or maybe the weather or even the loneliness. I've been there, and I'm not telling you to stop all human interaction in favor of reading comics or watching anime or anything like that. If you're feeling lost, you can definitely call some friends or even get therapy. What I'm trying to say here is that we can thrive together as a community, as people who accept everyone for who they are, regardless of their preferences. I like different things, from building Gunpla to reading the X-Men to watching One Piece. For me, it's just as powerful to hear All Might screaming his United States of Smash or Steve Rogers saying Avengers Assemble as to hear any motivational speaker. In fact, I'll probably feel much more inspired by All Might. And I think that many people feel the same as me. So I'm here to tell you as a grown-up that it's okay. No matter what other friends tell you or even your relatives, it's okay to be inspired and motivated by fiction. I wish somebody would have told me this sooner. I am the big brother in my family, so I had to figure this out by myself. It's time to let go all of that nonsense that says that fiction is not real and accept that fiction can be a source of personal power and inspiration. We must not reject it. In fact, we can use the power of myths to live a flourishing life. I decided to make this video because, I kept returning to comics and anime to feel better in these weird times. And I think that Miracle Man reminded me to never lose sight of the human side of everything. Yeah, everybody wants to be insta-rich and famous to feel almost like a superhuman. But are we willing to lose our humanity to obtain that? This video will also work as a reminder to myself that it's okay to feel bad, and at the same time, it's okay to look up to our fictional heroes to find another way to get up and try again. I hope that this inspires you too. I really hope that every one of us is okay and get to live through these hard times. Hopefully, there will be cons next year where people will be able to meet in person, where we can party again with our friends. But in the meantime, we can still connect with other humans who feel the same way about fiction through social media. Leave in the comments what superhero or anime or manga hero inspired you the most. My name is Absa, and we can continue the conversation over at Twitter, where you can follow me at Absalonicas, and also on Instagram, where I post pictures of my figures, my cats, and sometimes even myself. As I said before, I'll be trying to talk more about the anime and comics that inspire me, and also about some figures or model kits that actually make me feel better. Not when buying it, but actually when building it or posing it. And till next time, I'm Absa, and always remember that in fiction lies power. So let's use it to forge our own hero story.